trying to reflect on ways to develop your courses for the professors and scholars here. Your primary goal is to walk away from this 2-week Woodstock of anti-Semitism with ideas for courses that you'll teach for credit at your home university. And importantly, for the Rizal King scholars, to begin to think about a project that you can bring back to your campus to help deal with issues of discrimination, anti-Semitism, etc. Okay, so today, now we're going to do this is the beginning of a pedagogical workshop. Leading our workshop is Professor Dyanne Martin, who's a friend and is a research fellow at ISGAP. She's also a professor of English at Wheaton College in the United States. So doing very important work on issues of anti-Semitism and pedagogy, and has been associated with ISGAP since she came here in 2021. So Dyanne, welcome, and the floor is yours, and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Charles. It is always an amazing privilege to be at ISGAP. I was just telling the morning session of how it revolutionized my scholarship and actually changed the trajectory of my career being at ISGAP in 2021. And even though you think, well, I came once, I don't need to come back. No, you need to come back every year because there's always new information and the people are always brilliant, and ISGAP always does an incredible job of putting things on. I think probably that most of you in the room actually don't need this workshop. You are already teaching, you are already crafting syllabi, and you know what you're doing. So there will be segments of this that you will probably just roll your eyes and be like, come on, lady, seriously, I know to do that. I know you know to do that. But for the one person in the room who might not know, who might be a first-year teacher, who's never had pedagogy training, just kind of be patient so that that one person can absorb that information. And for the Rizal King scholars, although you might not be making syllabi yet, although I've already challenged one of you to go finish high school, go to college, do some research in a certain area, and get your PhD, and then start teaching on that issue. So this will help you then. You guys could be thinking about how the context of the pedagogy might help you share, relate, inaugurate, initiate the project that you should probably already be germinating in your minds. So that said, let's get started. How do we write the syllabus? You do have an artifact you need to produce at the end of this amazing, incredible Summer Institute. You're not just here to party with your cool friends and hang out with Charles. You have to produce an artifact, as great as that is. You have to produce an artifact. Why? Because as I said to the morning session, we don't want to stay in the football huddle. We have to break the huddle and go out and do our jobs, right? If we just stay in the huddle receiving orders, we're in an echo chamber and we're doing no one any good. We have to leave the huddle to go run the ball or catch the ball or throw the ball or whatever it is quarterbacks tell people to do in the huddle. So this will help you break out of the huddle and put feet to your information that you've received from Sunday till next week. All of the information that you have received and will be receiving, it'll help you actualize it in a way that is powerful in your classroom. If you teach things the right way, it makes a difference. It really does. You might not reach every single student, but you'll reach some, right? And as I always say, each one teach one, change a world. So how can we teach effectively? I want you just to quickly shout out, 10 seconds, what disciplines are in the room? What are you teaching? Literature. Yes. Law. Psychiatry.
Public health.
I was waiting for the poli sci. Public health. Love that public health is here. Film. Oh, and you guys saw an amazing film. Also, you need to also see October 7th in Tragic Awakening. I'm so glad you got to see October 8th. It was incredible. I made students go to pedagogy. Take your students to the film in the theater. I took students this last spring to see October 8th in the theater on the big screen. One student was so moved, he wrote Tessa in the film. It's like, what can I do? How can I be an ally? I want to help. So you are all coming from very different places. But it doesn't matter if you're public health or poli-sci or law or literature, heart for literature, I'm an English teacher, or psychology or government or I'm trying to think biological science or engineering or whatever it is. If you're teaching, you need a syllabus. You need a plan. What's a syllabus? It's a plan, right? It lets you know where you're going. Few of us would get in the car, well, I was going to say without a map, but some people don't know what that is anymore, without GPS, right? There was a time before iPhones where we had actual paper maps. The syllabus is your map, it's your GPS, it tells you where you're going. And it doesn't mean it's inflexible. You should, flex and adapt and modify it as needed. Sometimes you are adapting it on the spot, right? And a student asks a question and you've just pivoted and changed gears because that's a really important question that needs to be addressed. So yes, you need a plan, but you don't need to be wedded to the plan. You need to make sure that the plan accommodates flexibility. So despite your discipline, no matter what it is, you need a plan, and we're going to talk about what's going on with this thingy. Let's get the mouse off of here. I think I actually accidentally hit the mouse. So I want you to quickly write down the 3 most important lessons you want students. I'm chained to the mic. I've been told don't move from the mic, but it's hard for me because I like to teach up here, but I will stay here because apparently you're having sound issues in the room. So quickly, just jot down, bullet list. Don't write me a 500-word essay. Give me a quick bullet list of the 3 most important things in your discipline that you want students to take away when they walk out of your door on December 20th or May 5th or whatever the end of the semester date is. What do you want them to know? What do you want them to have learned from you in your course about anti-Semitism? I want you to write it down. I'm giving you 3 minutes, 1 minute for each bullet. You have 2 more minutes. You have 1 more minute. And 30 seconds. Okay, and that is time. If you don't have 3, that's okay. Here's what I want you to do. Without discussing anything else, only state the 3 things you wrote down. Turn and talk to 1 or 2 people around you. On your mark, get set, go. You have 1 minute. Turn and talk to 1 or 2 people around you. What did you write down? Share only the goals. 32 more seconds. State only your goals.
Give us another minute.
Okay, time. Focus back up here. Leave your partners. Everybody look up front. It's okay if you didn't finish. You will not be penalized. I will not deduct points from your grade. So let me just ask you a question and then I'll tell you what I'm doing. How many of you found that you shared at least one goal in common? 1, 2, 3, 4 of you. 5, 6 of you. How many of you shared that, how many of the goals that you shared were completely divergent from one another? Okay. And so the rest of you, so it's about like another 6, like completely opposite, and then 6 were like, yes, we kind of had at least one in common. So the rest of you are in the squishy middle, right? So let me just have one law, one poli-sci, one lit, and one public health quickly share one goal. Law, go. Or, I saw a hand back there.
How to identify what's wrong with the anti-Zionist hate movement?
Okay, and what's your discipline?
Policy making.
Oh, policy making. What's wrong with the anti-Zionism movement? Who else? Where's my law? Thank you.
Connection between Zionism and Jewish peoplehood, claiming that Zion is a core component of identity. Jewish identity and political Zionism is a manifestation of that, coupled with the enlightened notion that people are already self-determination.
Excellent. Identity, personhood, peoplehood. Great. You need something. And where's my lit person? Somewhere over here? One of my literature people.
How to read a text, including film as a text, or how it presents and
Anti-Semitism.
pushes back against it.
Excellent. And where's public health?
Here. Content and both content and experiential knowledge of both African American and Jewish student particular relationships. I'm sorry, not relationships, histories. Particularities versus the differences. First, thank you. Versus the differences, then it's the shared experiences in the next bullet.
Thank you. Parallels and contrasts between Jewish and African American communities. And then poli-sci. I'm doing that in my last one. Poli-sci, where are you? All right. Well, there we go. Amy.
I really focus on anti-Semitism as a protein force, as a protein political force.
Okay, excellent. I want to be in Amy's class. Yes, sir. Pardon? Theology. Oh, I want to hear one of your goals. Last one.
These are graduate students. Understanding the theological undergirding of why anti-Semitism is an evil sin.
Amen. Fantastic. Understand the undergirding of why anti-Semitism is an evil sin. Fabulous. So let me tell you what I just did with you. I made you have to think rather than be passive listeners. I made you have to actively consider the question. I did that by making you write about it, but I limited your time. I gave you 1 minute for each bullet. That constrains students from going on and on and on and getting lost in the words. It forces them to be concise, right? So when you begin any lesson with students, you want to, number one, engage them by having them begin to think about the issue. And that's why you do what we call a quick write, no more than 5 minutes. It shouldn't take longer than 5 for them to answer whatever you're asking them to answer. And then make them what we call turn and talk. Let them turn to each other, because first you write it and then you articulate it. If you ask students to talk without having an opportunity to think or to write out what they are considering in their minds or contemplating, they get stage fright and they don't, or they don't speak well, or they're not as coherent or as cohesive as they'd like to be. So give them an opportunity to quickly, briefly write, and then give them an opportunity to explain it to the person next to them. Turn and talk. Why do I give you only 1 minute? Because if you give students too much time, they'll be talking about the cute football player in the cafeteria, or the cute skirt the girl had on at the football game, or the bad teacher in whatever discipline, or they'll be talking about you or whatever. So you don't want the sidebar conversation to run. You want them to get to the point. It constrains students into having to be, again, concise and get to the point, so that you can move quickly through your class material to get to the meat of the lesson, rather than just stay on the periphery of the lesson. So those 3 important takeaways that you want students to have need to become essential questions that govern your entire semester. So how do you find it? What is an essential question? It is a question that is so important. All of what you are teaching is going to help students answer that question or draw conclusions about that question. And you should have 1 to 3 governing your course. Maybe it's an 8-week course, you just have 1 question. Or maybe you are like the information dump truck and you like to back up and unload on people. I am guilty of that. So maybe you have like 5 essential questions for a 3-week course. But it really should be about 1 to 3 essential questions. So turn whatever you wrote, I'm not going to do this in here, you can do this on your own time, but turn whatever you wrote down as the thing I want students, the most important things I want students to take away from my unit, my class, turn those into questions. And you put those on at the beginning, at the front of your syllabus, so students understand the framework for your class. They know what they're working toward and what they're moving toward. No matter what you're teaching, even if it's like a workshop with scholars like this, it's still the same framework, right? What are we doing? How are we doing it? Why are we doing it? What do I expect from you at the end? If we had time, I would say turn and talk. What has your experience been teaching about anti-Semitism? But again, it's like kind of difficult to pass the mic around this room. It's a big room, so we'll skip that. And this is part of this. What I'm doing right now in skipping this and not having you turn and talk about the second question is an example of what that I explained earlier. Yes, Air 5. Excellent. You get the gold star and the candy. Not being wedded to your plan. Pivot, like flex when you need to flex. Be flexible, be willing to modify things as you see fit. Read your room. What's your environment? Do you have the tools you need? If you don't, what do you have to jettison in order to make your plan work? What if all of the technology crashes? What will you do? My goal as an instructor is always to be like, if I've got nothing but dirt and a stick, how will I teach these students this concept? So I always have a backup plan in my head for if the technology fails. If I've got dirt and a stick, what am I going to write in the ground to help students understand or to learn to move toward the answer to the essential question that I have for them? So the first thing you need to think about, the most important thing you need to think about after your essential questions, that first thing is, what am I teaching and how am I organizing it? How will I create the map? Pretend you're a cartographer. How are you creating the map? Are you drawing the oceans in first, or are you drawing the continents in first? What are you doing first? Are you drawing national boundaries in first? What are you doing? So you have to contextualize what you're teaching. Don't teach in a vacuum. And try always to relate what you're teaching to what students are experiencing in life today. Like, what is another reason you need to stay up on current events as a teacher, because you need to be able to relate what's happening in the world, what students are experiencing, to the material and the content that you're teaching. So contextualize what you're teaching. Your essential questions help you do that. The name of my class helps me do that. I have some students at my school who will say, I would like a trigger warning before I, or if I'm going to take this class, I need a trigger warning. Or they've told professors on the back end, after the class has ended, you should have had a trigger warning for this class. So my topic to them, or not my topic, my statement to students on the very first, I'm kind of scary on day one. I am, because I'm serious about Holocaust and anti-Semitism, and if you're not, you shouldn't be in that room. And so I tell them on the first day exactly what I'm like. I call it buyer beware. Ironically enough, they don't know what that means. I have to explain buyer beware. So after I explain buyer beware, like I'm aging myself now with buyer beware, I tell them exactly what I'm like so they know what they're buying, right? What did you just get into? And what I tell them, the most important thing I tell them is, the name of my class is called The Holocaust and the Holy Land, a literary exploration. I tell them, the name of the class is your trigger warning. Holocaust. What do you think you're gonna get in here? That's the trigger warning. If you understand what Holocaust is, then that's enough for you to know whether you need to drop the class or not. Because this is a topic that is so serious to me, I'm not going to handhold you through it. This is not a hand-holding class. You have to really be tough. I had a student come to me. She was an amazing student. She came to me on the first day. She had a lot of, the newest thing in the accommodations is for absence, unlimited absences. Don't get me started. Like, I remember when it was, extra time on tests and extra time to turn in homework. Now it's unlimited absences. So she said, I have unlimited absences, and so I just want you to know that I will probably miss class a lot. I said, you need to drop because you'll fail. I said, I won't fail you. I won't fail you, but you're going to miss so much material, it will be impossible for you to pass the class. You're going to miss the content. My class is like, you can't pass my class if you're not there. You just can't. You have to be engaged in I don't just lecture. You have to be engaged in the discussion and all the rest of it. So I said, everything in life is a trade-off. She was like, oh, really? I said, really? I said, my dear, everything in life is a trade-off. You can have your absences. Of course, I'm legally bound to provide those accommodations. And she honestly had a legit reason. It wasn't like she made up. I have had students make up stories so they could get the accommodation. They've told me that. I had a student go to a friend who had ADHD to learn how to mimic ADHD so she could get an accommodation to turn her work in late. There are those. And then there are the people like this student who had a near-death experience, had like her colon removed and had surgery and like had a reason not to be in class. But I said, missing the content will make you fail. It's not because I will fail you. So you have to decide what the trade-off is. Coming to class, but here's what you're going to get for that trade. If you don't take all of those absences, here's what you're going to get for the trade. She decided it was worth it. She did not miss one class, not one. She was outstanding. She was an amazing student. She was one of the best students, bright and curious, very intelligent, excellent writer, thoughtful, critical thinker. But I had to challenge her. And I didn't challenge her in a bad way. I challenged her to say, what's important to you? Because here's what's important to me. I'm not like that in my other classes, but don't mess with me on my Holocaust Lit course. Like, that's very important to me, to have students understand what is going on in the world with anti-Semitism today. And my Holocaust Lit course is what I use to draw the parallels between historical and contemporary anti-Semitism so they can see what's happening in the world today. So contextualize what you're talking about and warn students up front about the context. Whatever the name of your class is, right? It's gonna have something to do with anti-Semitism or Holocaust or whatever, right? Related to these two issues. And they're intricately related. So are you going to teach your class from a topical standpoint? Maybe you're doing tropes. There's a particular trope in your discipline area and you want to focus on that trope or those tropes. Or maybe you want to focus on the politics of anti-Semitism or the land rights of anti-Semitism or the theology behind anti-Semitism. Or maybe you want to do an author course and craft your course around specific authors who are experts on the issue. Maybe that's the way you want to do it. So you can think topically. For the Wiesel King scholars, be thinking topically. What do you want your project, for your project, what do you want people to take away from it? That's your essential question. How do you want to approach your project? Do you want to approach it from a topical standpoint? Or maybe you want to approach it from a historical standpoint. I was telling in the morning session, one of the reasons I absolutely love teaching English is because it allows me also to teach history. You cannot teach literature without teaching the history that surrounds it, the era in which it was written, right, and what it represented. Literature is a representation of its time in many ways. So do you want to do it chronologically? Do you want to do it by epoch? Maybe you're doing, the medieval era. You want to approach it, that politics of the medieval era. Ooh, anti-Semitic politics of the medieval era. I would totally take that class. Ooh, Amy, there you go. It's your next syllabus. Maybe you want to approach your class from a standpoint of the local geographic area around you. Are there issues endemic to your area that you see cropping up in your synagogues, your churches, your schools, your daycares, the mall? I remember driving, I left campus one day and I drove, I guess I was going home, I drove through downtown Wheaton, and there was some kind of like weak protest of people with the Palestinian flag, and I don't know, like a very scraggly group, maybe like 10 of them, very not well organized. And so I thought, wow, that's not where I expected to see that kind of protest, because it was Free Palestine, like I don't have a problem with the flag. It's a Free Palestine. Like, what do you mean by that? Do you understand? From the river to the sea. What river and what sea? They don't know. They can't tell you what river or what sea. They don't know. It's just like a slogan they chant to be on the right side of history. But you can't be any more wrong than that. The eradication of the Jewish people or the eradication of the Jewish nation, you can't be on more wrong of a side of history than that. And P.S., it will never happen. So think about your school, your town, your city, your state, your daycare, your downtown area, whatever it is. Maybe that's what you want to focus on. I don't know. These are just ideas to help you think through how you might want to organize your content. Regional. I was talking to a wonderful young man, he's in high school right now, about this issue a little bit earlier, and somebody else, I think his name was David, forgive me if I've forgotten your name. I tend to focus on the US. Like I'm focused on Western anti-Semitism. I'm not an expert in European anti-Semitism. I teach about it. You don't have to be an expert to introduce it to your students and to bring I don't have to be the expert, but I know the experts. So I bring the experts to my students. I bring guest speakers to my students. I bring the right books to my students. So do you want to, maybe you're a Middle Eastern scholar. I met somebody earlier, I think Vienna. Are you in here? Were you from Vienna? Yes. Right, maybe that's the area of the world that you want to focus on. Maybe you want to focus on Central Europe, or taking students to Prague for 4 months in a few weeks to study Holocaust and anti-Semitism. And so we're going to be focusing on anti-Semitism in Central Europe, right? We're going to visit we're going to Auschwitz and Terezin and Birkenau and Dachau and a few other places. So maybe that's how you want to approach it. Global, you pick from the world. Maybe you want to talk about, this would be a hardcore class. Maybe you want to talk about the way in which anti-Semitism manifests itself in your disciplinary area in different parts of the globe. What does it look like historically in Italy, historically in France, historically in the Middle East, historically in Western Europe, historically in Eastern Europe, historically in Central Europe? Maybe that's how you want to organize your course. So these are just some ideas to help your brain start generating information for what you might want to do. Super important, bring in the experts. You don't one of the best pieces of advice I ever received, I was a scholar in residence at Cornell for the School of Criticism and Theory. Hey, shout out to Cornell. And my professor, Dr. Carolyn Rouse, she was on loan from Princeton. She's a director of African Studies and Anthropology at Princeton, or she was back then, I think it was 2017. And she gave me amazing advice. She said, because I am like, I want to know everything. She said, you don't need to know everything. You just need to know the right people. You need to know your thing well, but know the right people to bring. So what speakers will you bring in to help supplement your expertise? I'm not a political scientist. I brought Amy Ellman into my class, right? I'm not a theologian. I brought Aaron Free into my class. I brought David Bernstein. I'm not an expert on the cultural zeitgeist of what David Bernstein calls woke anti-Semitism. I brought him to my class. So bring in your experts. And what films will you show? Videos are important. Films are important. Students today tend to be very responsive to what they can see. They're kind of checked out of text. It's the Twitter generation, or the X generation, where it's got to be like 2 sentences or whatever the rule used to be, 360 characters, I don't know. But they understand videos. One of the most powerful videos I show in all of my classes is not just my class on anti-Semitism. I show it in also my pedagogy classes to students who are learning how to be teachers. I show them ISGAP's video. ISGAP has an awesome 15-minute video on anti-Semitism in the African-American community. And when they hear for themselves the anti-Semitic people saying the things they say, it revolutionizes their way of thinking. Jaws literally drop in my classroom. And they won't drop while they're reading. I can give them 20 books that are powerful. Their jaws won't drop. Their eyes might open wide, but when they see it and hear it, their jaws drop. So don't negate the power of film. My film teacher over there, do not negate the power of film. Film is text. It's visual text. I teach a class called Visual Rhetoric and Semiotics. You want to focus on the semiotics of anti-Semitism. That's going to be my next article, the semiotics of anti-Semitism. So what are the challenges in teaching about anti-Semitism? It's not going to be easy. You're going to face opposition, and depending on where you are, you might have students protesting outside of your classroom, or you might have students writing complaints to your president of your college. So how will you navigate those challenges? The first thing you have to remember is these are sensitive topics. These are very sensitive topics, and you have to nuance the topics and give all the sides. Trust that students have enough intelligence to come to the conclusions about truth if you give them the truth, but also give them all the sides. Don't create a new echo chamber. Give them all the sides, because the truth will rise to the top. So I warn them on the first day about the sensitive topics, and that's what I told you earlier. I tell them, look, Holocaust lit. That's a trigger warning. Go look up Holocaust. You're going to read it all. You're going to hear it all. You're going to see it all. So don't be obnoxious about it. Just tell them, I want you guys to understand what you're getting into so that you can make an informed decision about whether or not you want to stay in this class. And then I tell them, if you have to drop, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I'm not going to even remember who you are 2 days from now. I don't know you yet, right? I know them by the end of the first day. I make it a point to memorize my students by the end of the first day. But hey, man, if you drop my class and I see you in the hallway, seriously, I'm not going to remember you. I saw you for 1 hour, one day, right? So I let them know it's okay. You're not going to hurt my feelings if this is not the right class for you. Not every teacher is for every student. Not every class is for every student. So let them know that. Be honest with your students. Tell them the topics are sensitive and give them the freedom without making them feel guilty to drop your class if need be. No one ever drops. I actually really tried to have people drop. Last semester, I had 25 and I had a waiting list. 25 is our cap. And that's a lot of papers to grade. And so I don't want the bad actors. The bad actors have plenty of other teachers they can choose from. Give me the people who are sincerely curious and want to learn. So I tried to scare them out, and no one dropped. And so the next day I was like, y'all, nobody dropped yet. I was not scary enough. Let me try again. And then came back the next week, and no one dropped. And out of 25 students, 24 of them, the needle moved. One of them, he stayed stuck in whatever he stayed stuck in. But 24 out of 25, the needle moved for pro-Israel. So warn them and be sensitive about it and be kind about it. Don't be obnoxious about it. You can be funny. My students know to take me with a grain of salt. Be respectful. You have diverse student backgrounds. I literally taught a class called Teaching Diverse Learners. It's an 8-week pedagogy course. I would teach it one half of every semester. And the whole class is how to address the different ethnicities, languages, cultures in your classroom, right? An idea, I like to tell students, is not just the color of skin, it's not just the religion, it's not just where you're from, it's also ideological diversity, which we love to forget about in academia. We love to create echo chambers and forget that there's ideological diversity. And just because someone doesn't think the way we do or believe the way we do doesn't mean that that person cannot change or become an ally in some other way, right? So be respectful of all of the diversities in the room, but do not allow it to become a victim contest, because that's in the culture. I'm a bigger victim than you are, right? I got more victim points than you do. So by the culture's matrix, I'm like the Mac Daddy victim. I'm a black, female, Jamaican immigrant from a third world country. Wow. All I need now is I don't know what else to be, what? Yeah, or to be handicapped or blind, something, right? So I don't play that card. I don't work that way. Do not let your students play those victim cards. Respect everybody's trauma. Everybody has history. Every people group has trauma. Yes, the white people do too. We get the word slave from the word Slav. Guess who were the first slaves? The Slavs, the white people, right? White people have been enslaved all throughout history too. That's a whole other class. So don't let them play the victim card, whatever the diversity is. Understand, recognize, and respect the historical trauma of the people groups, but remind your students This is a class about anti-Semitism or about political anti-Semitism or whatever your topic is. You have to draw them back to the essential questions. What you're saying is really important. Your experience of your people has been really important, but this is not that class. We can talk about the parallels. We can do a little side trip into parallels, but again, this is not that class. This is a class about anti-Semitism. Keep the focus. The story of Jews keeps getting hijacked over and over and over again from all these different people groups who want to say, no, 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 we're the victim. We're the minority. So I was just talking to somebody, Trish, earlier about a book called How Jews Became White People, right? Like this conflation of Judaism and Jews with the white settler colonialist oppressor narrative. So be very mindful of that history and those tropes and those, quite frankly, fallacious lies that float around in the culture, and remind your students that this is a class about anti-Semitism. You might have, like I had that one kid, one out of 25, you might have a denier, you might have a minimizer, you might have the, well, what about this? Well, what about that? Well, what about that? Mine was the minimizer. He wanted to minimize everything about the Jewish experience. Smart kid, like really smart kid, but just, I know what, plant seeds, you never know when they'll sprout. So what do? Number one, don't get mad. The student has won when you get mad. And if you're teaching an explosive topic like anti-Semitism in a 21st century culture, there are gonna be some hot moments in your classroom, right? So don't get mad. They've won and thrown you off your guard and thrown you off kilter if you get mad. Stay calm. The second thing is ask questions. You would be amazed at how you diffuse or derail a student's erroneous thinking simply by asking the question. So learn to be more Socratic in your method when you get those deniers or minimizers or whatabouters. Just ask questions that lead them to their own conclusions, where they run into a wall. They eventually will run into an intellectual wall. But in order to ask the right questions, you have to know the right answers. That means we have to study and be equipped. Like you're here at ISGAP, that's part of the equipping. You have to know what you're talking about. And if you don't, run out of class when you're done and go look it up. Some of my best research has come because a student asked a question or made a statement that I knew was wrong, but I didn't have the rebuttal for. So I went out and ran out and did all the research until I found all the rebuttals. And I was like, yes, yes, yes. And then I was able to bring it back up in the next class. So we can't be lazy teachers about that. We can't be complacent. Well, I went to Yale, I went to Columbia, I went to Cornell, I went to whatever, I don't need to. No, we always need to. The day you stop learning is the day you might as well be dead. Like every day be learning. How can I become a better instructor of my material today? How can I better answer that question that student asked me? How can I better rebut with sensitivity and respect that erroneous, fallacious statement that student made? So we need to know the facts, we need to equip ourselves, and as I keep saying, being here is part of that. You've done yourself a favor by coming to ISGAP. So let's get into the practical aspects of a syllabus, and this is where those of you who have been teaching for more than one day will roll your eyes, but some people might need this. Your contact information, that's really important. That needs to be on the syllabus. I don't put my phone number. I spend a lot of time with students. The line out my office door for office hours is long. I've had faculty members come and ask me, like, what do you say in class? Why are they all standing outside your door? And the interesting thing is, it's 95% personal stuff and 5% academic. They're not there to talk to me about work in the classroom. They're there to talk to me about life. And I have said I'm going to put a sign on my door that says counselor, or I'm going to go get a counseling degree, because that's what I'm doing in my office. So I cannot give out my phone number. I won't sleep, because some of them have my WhatsApp for study abroad programs, and already 4 o'clock this morning, ask me why I was up at 4 o'clock in the morning. 4 o'clock this morning, one of my students who's graduated is texting me about how he can't live without the girl he cheated on with her best friend. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, Shane. I'll get back to you tomorrow, right? So you have to be careful with the contact information that you put out. Don't, unless you're really ready to field all of those phone calls and all of those text messages, don't put your personal cell phone number out. Put your office number out. Your email, of course, right? Students say I answer email like they're text messages. I'm very responsive on my email. So basic contact information, a description of the course. You need to kind of tell them what they're signing up for. You could pull the course catalog description and put that, but I like to make it a little bit more robust than just what's in the course catalog. Your essential questions and your learning objectives. Here's the framework that's governing the class, and here are the learning objectives that I expect you to achieve when the class is over. So I'll typically have 3 to 5, unless it's an AIS, an Advanced Integrative Seminar, then they have 8. They have 2 that are AIS, and then like whatever my tags are, global studies, global perspective, they've got 3 objectives for that, and literary explorations, they've got another 3 objectives for that. So you don't need 8 objectives, 3 will do you, right? 3 is a good number. Required text, they need to know what to buy. I like to host my syllabus. I've moved away from paper syllabi, even though I'm a big paper girl. I host my syllabi online in whatever online management system the school is using. The Porsche of all of them is D2L, Desire to Learn. I love that system. One that's not as fantastic but still good is Canvas. Some of you, if you're using Blackboard, well, you have my sympathy. But whatever your learning management system is, your LMS is, I like to host it there because then it's dynamic. Then I don't have to reprint paper copies when I change or modify something, right? I change it online and it's changed everywhere. So required text, whether it's online or on the paper, make sure they have, or in an email. I like to send an email a month before school starts and be like, these are the books that you need. Get them now. Instruction will not be delayed, and quizzes will not be delayed, and seminars will not be delayed because you don't have your books. Get your books now. Class policies and procedures. Students need to, this is the buyer beware. They need to know what to expect from you. What are your rules? How many absences? How many tardies? What's your grading policy? What's your late work policy? What's your hygiene policy? Yes, in college I have to have a hygiene section. I don't know what's happening in the homes. What else is on my syllabus? I don't know, there's a bunch of stuff in there. You know why your syllabus moves from like 2 or 3 pages to 10? Tell me why. Because they keep doing things you never thought they'd do, and you have to have a new page for the thing you never thought they'd do. It's like, I didn't think I needed to address that, right? And now I have a page, so 12-page syllabi. So class policies and procedures. It's also a cover your butt, because when they want to challenge something that they shouldn't have done, you can point to the syllabus. A syllabus is an implied contract. We're my law people. The syllabus is an implied contract between the student and the teacher, the student and the school. So that is to cover your butt. Like, remember here in your syllabus, my students quote me because I'll say, I don't know, what does it say in your syllabus? Whenever they ask me a question that I not only went over like twice with the syllabus, I'll lovingly say, I don't know, what does it say in your syllabus? Or I'll say, you tell me. And it sends them back to the source. Because students sometimes just want you to tell them. And I'm like, no, you need to do some work. Because if you do the work, you'll remember. If I tell you, you'll just forget again. If you have to go look it up, you'll remember it was painful. You had to open the computer, you had to log into the website, you had to scroll to the syllabus page, and you had to read. You'll remember what you read there. So have those class policies and procedures. And this is arguably the most important part of your syllabus. Like, everything is important, but you don't have a class without that last bullet. What are you doing every day? Every class meeting? What are you doing in class? What is their homework? What do they need to have for the next class? And what are you doing in class that day? You don't need to spell out every jot and tittle of your plan. You don't need to give them like an incredibly detailed map to where you can't see anything but lines. But you need to give them like a bullet list overview of what they're doing in class that day and what their homework is. So those are the things that will help your syllabus be a very effective document for you and them, because it becomes a guiding document. Guiding, you're not wedded to it, you can modify it, it's flexible, but it gives you the plan. Relevant assignments. It doesn't matter how many amazing books you choose. It doesn't matter how dynamic of a speaker you are. It does not matter how incredibly organized your syllabus is. If you don't craft your assignments in such a way that students are 1, engaged, 2, curious, and 3, relating what they're learning in your class to the life they're living, you're not going to have the kind of success you could have if you just spend a little bit more time crafting your assignments carefully. So relevant assignments. Don't just pull assignments from another syllabus from another class and adapt it to the class you're doing on anti-Semitism. Really be thoughtful and intentional about the work that you're asking students to do. And also don't overburden yourself. Don't assign 10-page essays because that's what we've done for 50 years. Like, no. Like, you don't need 10 pages to understand if a student can write well. I mean, yes, I do need to know if they can sustain an argument in an AIS, but I don't need to know that for every single assignment, right? And scaffold your assignments. The best assignments are scaffolded. They build one on top of the other. So you start with the small, break it down into discrete, D-I-S-C-R-E-T-E, discrete steps, separate steps, and ask students to accomplish the steps at different stages of the learning. So make relevant assignments and scaffold the assignments. You'll be amazed at the work student. I travel, I have now learned after spending 10.5 weeks traveling through England, Wales, Scotland, and Europe last summer with just a carry-on suitcase and a backpack, I now refuse to check a bag. If I had checked a bag, I would have brought you reams of model texts of things work students have done so that you could, as artifacts, so you could pass them around and see what they come up with when you give them a good assignment and set them loose. It's amazing. They'll blow your mind. Students are so creative and so inventive, so smart, right? You need to direct that intelligence and that creativity in the right places. That's your job as a teacher. You're a guide. Help them see truth, especially when it comes to this issue. Don't tell them the truth, show them the truth. Let them draw their own conclusions. So model texts. I just said if I had checked the bag, I would have brought you a slew of model texts. I do have many, many, many on my flash drive, and if we have time, I'm happy to pull up some student work and show it to you. But you want a good example. If you're kind of starting from scratch, or maybe you are an expert but not in anti-Semitism, maybe this is your first year at ISGAP and you're kind of really wondering how to craft a syllabus on anti-Semitism, well, ISGAP has an amazing resource for you. So if you go to the website and you click Educational Initiatives, come down to Course Curriculum Resources, and once you click that, you will be brought to a page that has different years. So you can see, where's the little green thing? 2020, 19, 18, 17, 16, etc. I just landed on 2021. And then once you're there and you see the syllabus section, you can go and click on any professor's syllabus. So it's a sweet little cache of syllabi. So once you get to that page, go to the bottom, view syllabus here, and you can see what all of the people who came before you at ISGAP have done, what their projects were, what their syllabi were, right? They give it to ISGAP to host on the website, and you will give yours to ISGAP, and someday somebody will be looking at yours to see how to create a good syllabus. So I am actually not sure this is going to work. When I click sample, it should take you out to a sample on ISGAP's page, but I did not test it on this computer, so let's see what happens. Works on my laptop. Yeah, let's just, sure, etch, we'll go there. Yay, it worked. Love it when we don't have to go outside with the stick and the dirt. So here is a syllabus offered by two professors who were at ISGAP 2 years ago, because I was here in 2023 and I met them here. And they teach in Canada, and this was their syllabus. And you can see the name of the class, the meeting dates, the professors, the contact information. God bless those of you who put your cell phone numbers on syllabi. You should get a Purple Heart. Course requirements. This is what I expect from you. This is how you'll be graded, like graded work details, required course materials, 8 learning outcomes. So I want to take a minute. Let me see if this, I'm a Mac girl, so right now I'm kind of like having cognitive dissonance. To blow this up, I guess I have to use a keyboard. Forget it. Yeah. Where's at the top? Thank you. Oh, that makes it very easy. Where's the plus? Here. Yeah, I was looking for my Mac shortcuts, and like that keyboard doesn't have them. So I want you to take a minute and read the learning outcomes. Go. To yourself, quietly. Ready? So you can kind of see, you don't need 8, I have 8, but you don't need 8. But I have 8 because I have an advanced integrative seminar in AIS. Cheating, you need to have a policy on cheating because it will happen, and what will you do when it happens? Cover your butt, remember CYB. Have a clause about AI. What are your AI expectations for your students? I am an English teacher. I don't allow AI in my classroom, and you will fail automatically if AI writes your essay. However, there are other classes, like my pedagogy class, teaching writing class, where students, their job is to learn how to make a lesson plan and make assignments. And then a good assignment has a model text, an example, but they don't have students yet. They don't have students yet to have a model text. And they're busy enough, I'm not gonna make them write the model text. So I let them use AI to pretend to be a student to write the assignment. They put their assignment into AI, they say, AI, pretend you're a 7th grader and write this, and the AI does that. I say, make sure you proof it and it really sounds like a 7th grader. And in that one class, I let them use it as a fake student. But where they're writing their own essays or doing their own brainstorming, personally, like, that's a no for me. I'm an English teacher. You need to learn to write. If you can't write, you can't think. MIT just did a study on how it's degrading the human brain, all this offloading of essay writing to AI. Put your policies on recording. I tell students I record every class. It's a CYB. I teach really volatile, sensitive issues. And I'm sorry, but some kids lie. So I have a little digital recorder, $70 on Amazon. It's been amazing. My husband and I both record all of our classes so that we have proof of what we said in that room. I've had students say stuff that is like bizarre. That's like, you made that up. And then I just press play, and the student lied. So whatever your policy is, have that on your syllabus. Values, culture. Now here's the part I said was critical. You don't have a class if you don't have a course schedule. What are you doing week 1? You're doing these 6 things. What are you doing in class? There's your group work. What are you doing in class 2? All right, so this class meets twice a week. So this section of your syllabus is where students know exactly what they're supposed to do every day, and you remind yourself of what you're supposed to teach every day. Put hyperlink. Again, if you host this online, the hyperlinks can just be, you can just say Holocaust Remembrance and hotlink it, right? Instead of having to put the whole HTTP URL. Recommended sources. Some of you in here might see your name up there. Recommended sources, etc. What do you need to do? So let me get to the bottom. This is just telling you every week what you're doing in class, and what your homework is, and what the topics are. That's one of many effective ways to organize your syllabus. I'm going to do this and just get to the bottom. And there it is. Class ended after 13 weeks. Oh, it would kill me. I would lose 3 weeks of instruction. Don't teach in Canada. The semesters are not long enough. Charles, where'd Charles go? He went to school in Canada. There are, I don't want to say hundreds, but lots. If you just be conservative and say 50 people come to ISGAP every year, and it's more than that, that's how many syllabi have been up there from since 2016, 15, whatever it is. So yeah, I guess I'm English teacher, not good at math. I guess I could conservatively say there are hundreds of syllabi on ISGAP's website for you to, including this one. This just I just hot linked the PowerPoint out to ISGAP to a particular syllabus. That's all. This is there for you. Okay, let's get back to what we are doing. I want you to do another turn and talk, and these are true stories. I spoke to students this week in Washington, D.C. at the Israel on Campus Coalition Summit. As 753 students and 50 faculty members. And I was in a breakout session with a group of students, and this is what they shared about what they're being told on their college campuses. So I'm going to show you what they're being told, and then I'm going to give you a task to turn and talk with your neighbor. One girl was told, you belong in an oven. Another girl was told, go to a restaurant called Auschwitz. They serve roasted Jew there. This is in 2025 in America. This is not Hitler's Germany in 1938. That these 20-year-old young Jewish women are being told these things on their college campuses and on their online platforms. So here's what I want you to do. You're teaching a topic that's sensitive and volatile. What would you teach in your classroom to help you change that attitude on your campus? How do you offset that attitude? Turn on talk. You might get set, go. I'm going to give you 3 minutes.
So only two.
Turn and talk to one person, not two.
What I will say is that from my experience,
First, let's start at that. We cannot just read it. It's about just not respecting one another. So we have to say, no longer. This is never. This is an harassment.
I don't know what I would do. What I would do is from an earlier point in life, I'm kind of in a big
That's my first time, like, directing. It was at me in school, by someone that was very good time, like, not because of that. And, like, I don't know if there's probably of, like, the Holocaust I don't know.
1 more minute.
I obviously don't want it, but there wasn't like I don't know. But I think it's something like the only way to do like stuff like that. Everyone believes that. I don't know if that's been a productive
That's the problem. Beyond questions about the merits of each so it's something I mean, I'm okay with that at the end. Even if we don't
10 more seconds.
But since I also
Okay, attention up front, back to the screen, please. Notice that whenever I give you a timed activity, I count you down. Your students need to be counted down or they'll just get lost in the weeds talking, right? So give them like 1 minute markers, a 30-second marker, whatever it might be. All right, let me hear from the experts in the room. You all have different disciplines. What would you do? How would you help offset this attitude on campus? Amy.
Perhaps it's not something that any of you would want to hear. The very first thing that I would do is tell the student to report that to administration, because I don't believe teaching is possible in that kind of environment. And administrators have to take action, because without that, those kids that have had that happen to them, I'm telling you now, they're in their rooms. They're not coming into classes where they can't even concentrate on whatever lecture I have or whatever turn and talk is. So I think we have to really hold administration to account. And this is, I wouldn't expect anyone to report any of this.
That's the first thing you do is report it. Absolutely. You are legally obligated to report it. What else would you do? Yes, sir.
Actually, before reporting, I would express empathy.
Oh, I love that, yes. I think, I hope, I assume everybody in this room would, that would be the first thing that you do. That's a great point, thank you, is express empathy, whether you're Jewish or not, right? It's even more important if you're not Jewish to express that empathy and then report it. Who else? What would you do? How are you going to change this climate? What will you do for those students?
I mean, I think
Outrage is in order. Like, as a human being, these type of statements are never okay, no matter which group. So before we can have a discourse about what's right and wrong, let's go back to the basics. I would ask the student to leave. The one who made that statement, I would also take my own measurements, like report it and ask to report. But it's been going on for too long.
Yeah, and the thing is, empathy is necessary, and we have to, I mean, we're not human without that. But if that's all we have, nothing changes. Like, we have to do the reporting. We have to, you should feel outraged. I mean, I don't even want to look at it. It makes me outraged just to look at it, and I heard the students say it with my own ears. So empathy, report. If the student is in your class who said it, remove the student from the classroom. I would ask for the student to, I've asked for a student to be permanently removed from my class. I've had that request put in. So you can do that. You are within your rights as an instructor to protect your students, to have another student removed from the classroom. But document immediately. So it's not, well, I think she said document immediately and have eyewitnesses whenever possible. One more, what would you do?
I would, maybe if this was said in my classroom, I would go a different direction, go with the Socratic method. I'd ask them questions to make them enunciate what they're actually advocating for. Say, okay, well, why? Why them? Do you do this for other people? You know, like not badgering, but actually making them one question response, and try to make them really think out the logical conclusions of what they're advocating for.
Excellent. What do you do if the kid's not in your classroom and your Jewish student tells you that this was said? Like, now, I see a hand over here before we move to that one.
We have similar comments in Chinese internet as well. Also on my in my Chinese university, we have internal internet. So these are comments from real people.
Can they trace them on the internal internet?
It's anonymous, and I reported to the university, and actually the university will do nothing about them. And the only thing that they will do is just delete the comments. So what should I do? When I see those vicious comments, I first make a snapshot, and I will put that in the class, because I have like 800 students a semester. So I make all those students to know what is happening on our internal internet. And most students, and I take it, I suppose they have their conscientious and they know that it's not all right. And some students will also report to the university, this is not a proper comment. To ask the students to despise those people who make those vicious comments. I think this is also the way. But in my system, I feel also very hard because the university will do nothing against those students.
So I'll tell you what you do when that happens. Amplify your voice and take it to the media. Find
media is also against that.
So find the subversive, non-traditional media voices, like the people on the internet. No, you can't do.
The social media is mostly against Jewish people. I'm so sorry.
Okay. So then you just keep doing what you're doing. Teach one, change the world. You keep casting seeds out, right? If you change one student per semester, that one student will talk to his or her friends. So when you are utterly constrained by that kind of regime where you really, it's kind of locked down in terms of what students encounter on social media and the administration is doing nothing and you can't amplify your voice in other ways, then you amplify your voice in your classroom and keep teaching truth and keep pointing them to what is right and true and good and honorable and just. And I would say, you don't have to agree with me, feel free to throw, always say, feel free to throw the stones. I'm okay with people disagreeing with me. I would say, at that, you pray, right? Pray that whatever seed you plant will turn into an oak tree.
I've dealt with this quite a bit at Boston University because I was the chair of a task force on anti-Semitism. A lot of students would come to me and report things to me, but they would not report them to the administration. They were afraid to. We now have a new sort of robust bias reporting system that still has some problems. I'm going to see what happens this year if students are still afraid to report. They can now report anonymously, although there are issues with that. So it's an issue if the students are afraid to report.
Yeah.
Retaliation, they're afraid of their peers. The biggest problem I ran into was 3 students in a section of a biology class, and the TA who was teaching that section was very anti-Semitic and made them sit in a corner by themselves. I mean, all this stuff I really could not believe. And they were just afraid to report it because they thought there would be grade retaliation. Never mind that when I met them, the interim president of the university was there at that Shabbat dinner, and I had him come over and talk to them. They still didn't report it. So there is this fear.
You know, and faculty feel that fear too, right?
If you're a pre-tenured faculty, you might be afraid to speak up or speak out because you're all, you know, if all of your colleagues are anti-Semitic, you feel the same fear. Or I am not a person. Sure, I feel fear, absolutely, but I don't care. Like, what is the saying? Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the what's somebody finish it. It's doing the thing even though you're afraid. So I'm pre-tenure. I'm actually going up for tenure right now. But I'm really, really vocal about anti-Semitism on my campus. I have Israeli flags on my door and pictures of hostages on my door, and you know, I walk around with my yellow ribbon pin, and nobody says anything either way. They don't say, we're so sorry about what happened, or isn't that horrible what happened, but they also, but I guess I'll let you know if I get tenure, I might not. So, but I don't really care. What's more important to me is telling the truth and standing up for what's right. So you have to just at some point overcome the fear, but it is real. Students and faculty do feel fear. So let's stop there. One more, sorry, go ahead.
So my question is, when I was at university, my lecturer, she does an anti-Semitism module where she teaches about anti-Semitism. And we had a week where we were talking about blood libels. And then after this lecture, we went to the library, and someone in my friendship group said, oh, it's funny that before the war, Bibi Netanyahu looked withered and looked like he was about to die, and now that they've bombed children and spilt children's blood, he looks, rejuvenated. And this was directly after our blood libel lecture. So my question is that even though we're going to ISGAP talks and teaching that education is, one thing to get rid of anti-Semitism, how do we stop this anti-Semitism?
So that is a really big existential question that I don't have a quick, easy, pithy answer for. But what I can tell you is that if you teach it the right way, if you teach about it the right way, that you will affect in a positive manner some of those students. My session this morning, which I repeat at I think 2:30, I talk about that, like how I teach my class, and there's hope when I show you what my students write at the end of the semester. I mean, I read what they wrote and it makes me cry, because I'm like, yes, God did a thing, the needle moved. Like, they get it. They're now totally, we understand the truth about Israel, and we want to support the Jewish people. Like, to see even one kid move from apathy or hate to that stance is powerful. You don't need to change the whole world. We need to change or effect change where God puts us. I call it, tend your garden. Whatever garden is in front of you, whatever classroom you have, whatever platform you've been given, whatever job that you have, wherever you're employed, tend that garden well. Teach what you can well. Know what you're talking about. Equip yourself with the knowledge so that when those conversations come up, or those statements come up, or those injustices come up, you are able to be an articulate, vocal advocate on behalf of Israel and the Jews, and to do it in a way that is both winsome, courageous, well, that's more than two, that is winsome and courageous and powerful. And don't get discouraged by the seeming lack of, what do I want to call it? I don't know what to call it. Sorry, I apologize to the morning people. I've had 5 hours sleep in 2 days. I flew in yesterday, and I was in DC to Chicago to London. So you don't have to change the whole world. You need to be open to having those scary, hard conversations with the people standing in front of you, and plant a seed. You don't know what's going to happen. Yes, the weeds might grow up and choke it out, but as I said earlier, it might grow up into an oak tree. But your job is to plant a seed, right? If we're all just planting one seed somewhere, imagine what that does. A good colleague of mine, a friend of mine, he was here last year, Aaron Free. He used to be a replacement theology supersessionist. Somebody planted a seed. Now he has a whole organization, nonprofit called Israel Team. His whole life's purpose is to advocate for Jews in Israel. And it's not because of, like prophecy or anything else, because he loves the Jewish people. So there is hope. Don't despair. Even when you see the bad, remember that there's good. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, we're now going to start just taking questions, and you're welcome to, if you want to come sit.
That's my contact information if you need it.
Thank you so much. I'm a pedagogy person too, but you helped me a lot in terms of conceptualizing these issues. I'm new to it. I'm going to pick up on where you left off and live your question that you asked about what else can be done. I'll share from the inside of a situation that we had very quickly. In my department, we had a graduate student who was teaching a course during the encampments live. And what happened with this situation in the class is that her graduate student, the graduate student who was teaching, said, I will eliminate the exam final to allow you to go out to the encampment. I will give you credit for it. And while you go out to that encampment, pick up a Noam Chomsky book and some others to educate yourself. It had nothing to do with the topic in public health that was being taught. The reason why we found out, I'm a faculty member, the reason why I found out is that she shared it. I just want to show you the flow of power that happened. She just shared it with her parents. And I know that undergraduate students are adults, but you might want to utilize your parents to help get things done. That parent it went two ways. One, the parent went straight to the president. I don't know how the parent got a hold of Pam Whitten, our president at Indiana University, but he did. And he said, my daughter needs to learn, her exam was canceled, and she was told to go out to an encampment and to learn more Noam Chomsky and some other things. I don't understand how that relates. He said, well, what she also did, she went to the Chabad house, who then shared it with a network down where she's from in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The Fort Lauderdale, Florida people then sent it over to a network where my friend Vivian Grossman, she works also with the press service, TPS of Israel, 9 billion dissemination of just real news, right? So she then sent it out to her network, who then sent letters up to that president. Remember, her father went straight to the president first. So now the letters went up to the president too, from this network from Florida that went all the way up. Then it got passed down to the dean of the School of Public Health. Then it got passed down to my chair, who then, my chair is who I directly report to, who said, we need to stand behind the graduate student. The graduate student has the ability to have quote-unquote faculty governance. So we need to stand behind her. In addition to that, our assistant chair who trains our graduate assistants who teach said, yeah, we need to stand behind them and we tell them that they have full autonomy. So there's nothing that we should do. I wouldn't tell her to do anything differently. I was the only person who said, so we got into a huge fight. I'm always in fights. So yeah, the bottom line here, Liv, use just as much as you can, those other things. So I just wanted to share that. I know there's many other examples like that, but yeah.
I would say two things to that. One is, yes, you do have a lot of autonomy, but you point out the double standard. So if I would like to give, instead of an exam, people to go wave the Israeli flag on campus, will that be allowed? right?
Exactly.
So just flip the script and then see what they say then, because if they don't allow you, even if it's a hypothetical situation, don't tell them it's hypothetical. Well, I want to eliminate my exam and have students go and, you know, sing the Israeli national anthem and march on campus with their flags. That's okay, right?
Right.
And you'll quickly find that they're like, oh, well, wait a minute, and then, well, wait, you can't have it both ways.
Exactly.
The second thing that I would say to that is when universities lose money, that's when they wake up. Like in Jamaica, we have a saying, those who cannot hear will feel. And schools need to feel the loss of tuition revenue before they wake up and start changing their MO. And so even though it is actually illegal for us to contact parents if you're teaching at the college level, unless the student wrote a waiver for it, encourage the student to ask the parent to contact the administration or to reach out to you so you can pass it along to the administration, because parents' voices when it comes to these issues have power. Money talks. Get your kid out of those schools. Stop throwing your money away to organizations that are anti-Semitic. Like, stop doing it. If they don't feel, they won't hear.
And last part of the story that you just reminded me of is that policy did change. They ignored my chair, the dean, and the people who said let it go. They flipped the governor flipped the board of trustees that we had. There is no more shared governance. It's now the board of trustees makes decisions. So yeah, they felt the money issue.
Good.
Yeah, the bad press. Thank you.
So yeah, thank you for your presentation. I was going to say that it strikes me that I mean, I realize that the pro-Palestinian people are often deeply entrenched in this. What I'm about to say is maybe not possible in some instances, but I would say that the consequences aren't severe enough for saying things like, you know, go to Auschwitz restaurant. That should be considered a death threat, honestly, and, you know, illegal. So it seems like that should be suspended.
Oh, they should be expelled.
Expelled, yeah.
Absolutely, they should not be. I've seen students expelled for far, you know, fewer, less serious issues. You're absolutely right, they should be expelled.
Yeah, I'll be talking a little bit about this next week. If you read all of the reports on campus anti-Semitism that have been put out since 10/7, and they're really quite good, you'll find that one of the major sources of particularly intolerable and painful pedagogical anti-Semitism is from teaching assistants, graduate students who don't feel some of the restraint that faculty members may feel. They have the passion of undergraduates, and they really have the independent authority of faculty members. And I think that schools need to have a very clear policy statement that if you do that in a classroom, you get a hearing, and then you don't get a second warning. The punishment for doing that in the classroom is termination. And graduate assistants are vulnerable that way, and they have to learn that there's a price to pay. It's going to be difficult, but I think it should be very harsh, be very explicit. You cross that line, you're gone.
Yeah, there's a great verse in, I think it's Ecclesiastes, and it says something to the effect of, when there is no punishment for sin, wickedness increases. There has to be a consequence. They just keep going deeper into their error when there are no consequences for their hate speech, their death threats, their anti-Semitic behavior. There needs to be a consequence. And so have consequences in your classroom for it, and work to get your campus on board with having better and more stringent and more strict consequences. Absolutely right. Thank you. I'm looking forward to what you're going to say next week.
I also wanted to just add something really fast that we should be considering in relationship to syllabi and curriculum development. We're talking with the Wazelle King junior scholars who are here about the way that curriculum impacts their classroom experience, and when there are complaints about syllabi, who reviews those complaints, and how do academic departments get structured. And I think that by discussing that problem here, because sometimes you realize that the person reviewing the complaint also has the same exact view, the same exact anti-Semitic sentiments that allow this to keep getting perpetuated and I guess entrenched into the entire academic system. So I think maybe if we talk amongst ourselves over the next week and few days that we have here, it would be important to see who's the oversight over these complaints, and maybe you have a little bit to share about that as well.
That's a great point. And so first of all, students, be honest in your anonymous evaluations, right? Everybody has end of course evals. We call them SPOTs, student perception of teaching. Well, we call them SPOTs in Florida. I don't know what we call them at Wheaton. Anyway, you all know what it is. Be honest. Don't be, the teacher gave you an F, so you're going to tell a lie to get that. Like, don't be that. And you get weeded out quickly, because if all of the comments are overwhelmingly positive, you stand out as the kid who failed. But be super honest in those evals. Here's why. Yes, the department chair, they go straight to the department chair, and the tech IT department sees them. And your department chair might be on board with the anti-Semitism being taught in the classroom, and you're like, oh no, there's no hope. No, there's hope, because beyond that, when that professor goes up for contract renewal or tenure, the faculty personnel committee that's reviewing that person's file reads all of those comments, reads those evaluations, and you have a far better likelihood of one of those 15 people not being an anti-Semite and saying, wait a minute, that's what's happening in this classroom. But you need to be consistent, and you need to ask your colleagues, your peers who are in that classroom with you to be consistent. If you're only one person saying it on the eval, they ignore you. But if, a third of a class is complaining about the same thing with the same teacher, and it's happening over and over, they will be forced to take it seriously. And again, if they're not, amplify your voice. Take it to the media. Find somebody who is find a Douglas Murray, right, to be your mouthpiece, because they'll listen to him. Amplify your voice in whatever ways are available to you. But they do get read beyond the department chair level, so that will give you hope. It's not just one person. There are many, many people who look at those eventually, and the teacher could end up not getting tenure and then being released from the university. So that would be, or maybe changing his or her mind, or his or her stance. Maybe the person would be forced to take a hard look at what he believes.
One more question about
I just wanted to say I really appreciate this conversation. I think it's a really important conversation that us as young scholars need to be having with this group. Because I think there's a lot of conversations about theories, there's a lot of research reports about how the university is getting the funding and how we can see this kind of a red, green, brown alliance, but I don't think we're able to share our lived experiences of what's actually happening on campus. And I think it'd be really useful to get that conversation between the theories and the actual practical experiences and get that kind of research out. Because we're just talking about that then. Like, my personal experience, I did a history and English literature degree. In my history degree, I learned history. I learned the history of anti-Semitism. I went to my English literature degree and I had a class on Israel-Palestine literature. The literature we studied was Palestinian literature. For an hour, my lecturer sat there and told me that Israel is a settler colonialist apartheid state, and that it was a kind of puff piece, and it was like, because Israelis are planting trees in their back gardens in these border cities, it's an act of war against Palestinians. But I could see my fellow students smiling and nodding along, and there's no encouragement of that debate, because I put my hand up, I said, this is blatant anti-Semitism.
So that's not how you do it.
I'm sorry to interrupt you for 1 second, but I'm so outraged that I have to talk. How you do it, I want you in those classes. I want you young scholars exactly in those classes, because how you get your voice in and start getting people to question is to ask questions. Just like I said, for the teacher to ask questions, you ask questions. They're not going to listen to you say, that's a blatant lie. They've tuned you out. Just from your tone, they stop listening. But if you say, I have a question, would you be able to explain, and this is why we need to know our facts, the history, like the 1927, the 1937, the 1948, the 1967, 1,300 years ago, the two temples, right? The mosque is on top of two temples. Well, it's not underneath the two temples. Who was there first, right? Who are the indigenous people? So if you're asking the right questions, you might never reach the teacher who is ideologically stunted, but you will get your fellow students starting to think about, well, wait a minute, yeah, maybe I should look at more, research regarding this issue. Don't give up hope and be in those classes. We need you in those classes. If it's an echo chamber, who's ever going to offer another perspective?
Well, I think this was the issue, was that I raised my hand and I was like, I believe this is a very anti-Semitic lecture. And it went from a one-on-one conversation with this lecturer to he basically turned around and was like, Molly is arguing that I'm wrong and that Israel is not a settler colonial state, and I want to open this to class. And all of a sudden, it's literally a room full of people now looking at me, but looking at me with disgust and with hatred. And I think it's a very idealistic perspective, because we as students can't have these conversations. They are so effective with their propaganda and with their arguments that they are literally stifling debate as is. I'm not even Jewish. I'm non-Jewish and I'm scared to raise my voice. And I think we're in a room full of people, and I think we need to have this conversation about what's actually happening on campuses, because this lecturer was in charge of DEI policy in my university.
Well, yeah,
there is no conversation about
surprised.
anti-Semitism on my campus.
I'm not surprised to hear that.
And Liv and I are the only two people that are speaking up about it, and we're not even Jewish. I don't even imagine what it's like to be Jewish at my university.
Yeah, thank you for being here, first of all.
We need non-Jewish allies. Well, ISGAP is the place to rant, right? It's safe here. That is when you complain to administration that you are in a threatening and a hostile learning environment. You have to be very intentional about the words you use. And you're not lying, it is a hostile learning environment, but you say, my instructor has created a hostile learning environment, and that activates all kinds of Title IX, they start to worry about those things. So be intentional about the words you use and be smart about the questions you ask. Don't ask the one-on-one questions, and he'll do exactly what he just did to you. In a very kind and calm tone, ask the right questions in your classroom, and he'll be forced to answer them or show his ignorance that he can't, or show his ignorance on the topic. But keep doing what you're doing. I know it's hard. God bless you for standing up for Jews in those difficult classrooms. Yay, you.
Any final comments? No, you're good? Okay, so we're going to end final question for Rona, and then I want to wrap up for 30 seconds. Microphone. Microphone. Okay, you can,
I'll just be glad. It's really just opening to a conversation for another day, but I think some of what we're talking about is, if you're on a state school campus, this is protected First Amendment speech. And we may experience it as hate speech, but it can still be First Amendment protected. Some of that, even if it's generally First Amendment protected, if it's creating a hostile environment on campus, it might be actionable for creating a hostile environment. And then there's the question of academic freedom, which there's very little legal, it's barely theorized, but there is the question of academic freedom, and to what extent academic freedom can be protected by First Amendment. So I just want to point that out. I wish I could actually refer everyone to some great literature on this, and yet I can't, which makes me realize somebody maybe I need to write it.
Nelson is here. He's written books and books and books.
Okay, hang on. Okay. We're wrapping up the end session. And I think as apropos, in some countries in Europe and in Canada and other places, we do not have the First Amendment, thankfully. In some cases, we have hate legislation, and you can't target identifiable groups with hate speech, so there's all sorts of protections that exist in other countries, but if there's the political will to enforce them when it comes to Jews, it's a whole other difficult situation. So there's different political and legal cultures. I want to say, first of all, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And what you also did, I don't know, unbeknownst to you perhaps, this is the first session that I'm hearing really the participation, of young people in the discourse, which is so important. And what we do at ISGAP every year is we throw the Wiesel King Fellows into the deep end of the swimming pool. And I know it's intimidating to sit in a room with a group of professors, but inevitably by the fourth, fifth day, you start to feel that you also have a very important place in this conversation. We know from analysis that young people are experiencing anti-Semitism profoundly different than older people. They're really at the front line of this new emerging discourse and the normalization of genocidal anti-Semitism, the normalization of the discourse of genocidal anti-Semitism, and as we were discussing earlier, this sort of license to kill. You're really at the, you're at the cutting edge of this, and I think, having a conversation with scholars of this and young people with your experience and articulating, the struggle that you're facing, and it's, again, it's anti-Semitism, it's Jew hatred, but it's also antithetical to what a liberal education really is all about. So it's destroying the whole notion of a liberal education that's, very, very serious. So Dyanne, on behalf of everybody here, thank you so much for facilitating this conversation.
Thank you. I want to leave you with academic freedom and academic responsibility are not the same thing, and we need to practice academic responsibility. They're getting away with violations because of that supposed freedom. So be the responsible educator, not just the academically free educator. And I would argue that the We Sell King scholars' voices are the most important voices in the room because, like our lives are half over maybe. And you're kind of at the beginning end of yours, and you are the people who are we're handing the baton off to. So thank you for being here, for being willing to learn.
Enjoy your lunch. See you at 2:30. Thank you.
Charles.
Thank you.